Disability rights aren't just legal battles. They're everyday struggles for dignity, respect, and true inclusion in North Carolina. Stay tuned to learn more on this episode of Inspire Iredell.
Welcome to Inspire Iredell. I'm Megan.
I'm Anna.
Today, we are so lucky to have with us Corye Dunn. Welcome, Corye.
Thank you.
So Corye is the Director of Public Policy for Disability Rights in North Carolina and has been in that role since 2011. It's quite a while. Mm-hmm. She's worked as a direct care provider to adults and children with disabilities and also in nonprofits seeking to expand access to education and increase investment in low-wealth communities. So sounds like quite an interesting line of work.
I think so. It gets me out of bed every morning.
Absolutely. Good. Sounds like you've been involved in a lot of things in your life that are really, truly making a difference in people's lives.
I hope so. I need a little extra kick to get myself going some days. So.
Is that what you always planned on? Is that why you got into this line of work?
I'm not a planner. No, I didn't plan on anything. If you had asked me when I was 19, I fully intended to be a biomedical researcher or something.
Wow.
Well, that's totally different.
Yeah. I started out with like a double major in French and physics and graduated with a degree in political science.
Okay. And that, folks, is what college is for.
Yep. It is. Yes. It was a clarifying experience.
Yes, there you go.
Okay, so Disability Rights North Carolina. So what is it? What does the organization do?
So think about it as a law firm like any other law firm, except we have a few superpowers.
Oh.
We are the state's protection and advocacy agency. And what that means is that, like every state and territory in the United States, we have an entity that is designated with the responsibility for advancing and protecting the legal rights of people with disabilities.
Okay.
We do that through a few different sets of tools, and the most unique is our access authority. So we have the right to enter any facility, any location where people with disabilities are receiving services, to monitor for health and safety, to monitor for compliance with the law, and to meet with people with disabilities across the state. Now, that sounds great, but there are roughly 3 million-ish people with disabilities in North Carolina, and about 42 of us. So we're not getting to every...
You are small but mighty. Very mighty.
We have to be really strategic about how we use our resources and where we decide to deploy them. We are able to do a lot of good, but we have to be really thoughtful about allocating our resources to maximize the impact of our work.
So is there a hotline that people call? How does that work? How do you do the work?
And I hope that you'll share, along with this episode, our website and other contact information. 919-856-2195 is our main telephone number, but we also have a 1-800 number that I can never recall.
That's fine.
From memory. And we take intakes both by phone and online.
Oh.
So if people need legal assistance, they can tell us about that online. You can go online. There's a really easy to follow form. You can even do voice to text if that's easier for you.
Great.
We've worked hard to make it as accessible as possible to the communities we serve. And it's your opportunity to say, this is what I think I need help with. We only work on legal issues that are directly related to a person's disability. And even within that, we're not able to do everything because, of course, disability is a lot of things. Disability is has significant impact on employment, education, housing, healthcare, you name it. Disability is sort of connected in some way to almost every major government policy. And so we really work hard. To make sure that we're using our resources as effectively as possible across all of those sectors. So, excuse me. So one of our staff at any given moment might be monitoring the provision of healthcare services in a jail, and another staff member might be in a privately operated psychiatric hospital, and we might have lawyers representing people in Medicaid appeals or in matters related to employment or housing discrimination. So we really do have a broad mandate, and we do that through a combination of federal grants, private donations, foundation support, and we, really are. We are determined to, we work really hard to raise enough private money that we can sort of fill in the gaps between the available federal funds.
Makes sense.
So with 8 federal funding streams, each of them has specific obligations attached to them, obviously. But they aren't, if you put them all in a pie plate, it wouldn't fill the pie plate up. And so we also raise money to fill in all of those gaps between the structured programs.
Wow. That's a lot.
I know. I mean, who would have known? Not me.
So what are some of the biggest challenges people with disabilities are facing now in North Carolina?
It's a great question. I would say that one of the biggest buckets, it's not one thing, but one of the biggest buckets of issues is always Medicaid. Medicaid is one of the most significant expenditures in our state budget. It is a federal, state partnership program, and so it's complicated in that way. And it is how hundreds of thousands of people with disabilities access healthcare in our state.
Yeah.
That's everything from medically fragile kids who just came out of the NICU to older adults who are just trying to age in place as long as they possibly can, to people in our skilled nursing facilities and other congregate settings. Medicaid is the source of health care for the most vulnerable North Carolinians.
It's so important.
It is so important.
It is. It can't be overstated.
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, these are things that people just, like I said, we didn't know everything that you do. You won't really know everything until you sit down or you have a family member or yourself or a friend that goes through something.
Even if you know one part of our work, why would you know all of it?
Right.
Why would you, if you have a kid in school and so you know our education advocacy work, that doesn't mean that you're going to understand or know about our Medicaid work or our work in jails and prisons or our work in our work with law enforcement to reduce the incidence of violent altercations between people with disabilities and law enforcement, and working with with professional associations of healthcare providers to address issues related to workplace safety and the sometimes difficult balance of healthcare provider and patient rights. So, we are in a lot of spaces and working hard to do right by people with disabilities in North Carolina because they deserve that.
Absolutely. I know that advocacy kind of takes, several forms. So, you're doing your work, but there's things we can do in our communities as well.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about myths around disability. So what are some common ones that you hear that, maybe people don't think that they're saying something wrong or they're just ignorant to the facts?
Well, I think the first is that people confuse Social Security disability determinations with disability more broadly. So when I talk about disability, I am often talking about the framework set out in the Rehabilitation Act or in the Americans with Disabilities Act, which talks about people who have or have a record of having or are regarded as having a disability, which is functional limitations in activities of daily living and in one or more areas. And so that can be cognition, movement, any number of areas. But what's key is that it's this expansive. There's not one cause, there's not one symptom, there's not one characterization. Disability is a lot of things. And it's convenient to talk about it all in one bucket because legally that's how it's defined. But on a practical basis, people are usually familiar with one or more types of disability. So if you were injured on the job and are not able to return to work, you might have an acquired disability that gets you a Social Security determination of disability. You don't have to have a Social Security determination of disability to have the protection of disability laws.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
So that's a big one, is that people think, first of all, they think disability is just a yes or no question. That there are some people with disabilities and there's some people without disabilities. And the truth is, most of us at some point in our lives will experience some degree of disability.
That's true.
It may be temporary. It may be only at the end of our lives. It may be brief. It may be long term. It may be, you may have had it since you were born. You may acquire it tomorrow. And so it's a really common part of the human experience and a really normal part of the human experience. But it is often treated as this scary other thing that is far away and that happens to some people. And oh, those poor people. We don't do a lot of pity or inspiration porn where I work.
That makes sense.
We talk about the dignity and inherent human worth of every person, including every person with a disability, no matter the type or the duration or what phase of life they're in.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I know that a lot of times whenever you're speaking to someone with a disability, you might go to help them, or you maybe use terminology that might be outdated when talking about somebody with a disability. What are some of those that these, good intentioned people might do that really are hurtful or harmful?
Right. I do think that the combination of the desire to be kind and helpful, a very positive impulse, along with unfamiliarity makes it entirely possible that people could step in it a little bit. It happens all the time. First of all, the first thing is take a deep breath, give yourself a little grace, but ask. You know, do
So
not,
simple.
Right.
we tell people a lot that the fundamental foundation, our fundamental foundation, that's redundant. The foundation of our work is that people with disabilities are fully human.
Right.
Full stop. So if you wouldn't touch a person's bag or arm or something else they're holding, why would you touch their wheelchair, their person, just don't get in people's space without consent. People, come on. So I think it's really well intended, but often feels invasive when someone, but you can just offer help.
Yeah.
You can say, can I help you? What would be most helpful to you? Don't assume that you know exactly what someone needs. If you see someone struggling with a door, maybe I've certainly been in this situation where there's one of those automatic door buttons, but it's not working. That makes me mad.
Yeah.
Someone's all excited. They're like, all right, there's a button. And they press the button, nothing happens.
That would be disappointing
So
for
if
me.
you have those at your workplace, please ensure they
Check
work.
on that. Right. If you want to be a good ally to people with disabilities, check on those buttons. See if they work. Tell someone if they don't.
Yes.
If you want to be a good ally to your colleagues and your friends and your neighbors with disabilities, offer help, but don't assume they need it. Don't assume you know what it is. Saying, I'm happy to help, what can I do, is perfectly fine. Now, might someone be in a cranky mood? Absolutely. Because people with disabilities are, like I said, fully human, right? So we also have good and bad days. And we are not obligated to be grateful and genteel when we're in pain and when we're having a rough time. And, we are fully human, and therefore we got some bad days.
Right.
So part of what I think like allowing people their full humanity means is accepting that they're not going to, throw a party every time someone offers to push their chair.
Right.
Yeah.
Or carry their groceries or open the heavy door. We're all dealing with stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they may not need that help. And even if they need the help, it may be the 14th door that day that they've wrestled with. And it may just be one last straw for the day. So, make space for what people are experiencing in real life. It's there's no magic to it. If you actually believe that the person in front of you is fully human, that should guide your engagement with them. Can I help you? Is there anything that you need? Would you like for me to get that? All acceptable. Touching someone without consent, and touching someone includes touching their walker, cane, wheelchair, brace,
Yes.
oxygen concentrator. Don't do that. Those are personal
Right.
items that are very central to the safety and mobility of folks who use them. So please don't invade that space.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want somebody invading my space.
No.
If someone grabbed your bag and was like, "Can I take that from you?"
I was like,
mean,
are you trying to rob me?
Exactly. So, however good your intent, please know that people are coming to that interaction with a host of experiences that may not all be positive. So, ask before you do anything. But the other thing is to ask people what they need. Does your workplace, for example, record a podcast? Is it captioned? Is it available? Check. Is it captioned? Is it available in ASL? Is it available in a written transcript that will allow someone who is perhaps hard of hearing to make sure they understood all of the words? Is the work that you're doing accessible to people? And if you have ever had the thought, as I have and many others have, well, we don't have any patients, clients, customers who are deaf. We don't have any autistic clients or customers. You may not. You may, and you don't know it, but you also may not because your workplace is not accessible.
Yeah.
And so using the absence of people with disabilities as a reason to not invest in accessibility is sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You don't have any today, and you won't have any tomorrow if you continue to operate in an inaccessible fashion.
Absolutely. And I mean, it gets to where, once you're in an accessible space, I mean, for example, we have a really nice playground downtown Statesville now where we record this podcast, and it is an all ability playground for everyone. And you can put a wheelchair on it, and the kids don't know the difference. They just think it's a fantastic place to play.
Right?
So that's just awesome to see. Or for example, I started listening to television a few years ago with the closed captions on.
God
and
bless the closed captions.
now I can't do it without it. I feel like I can't hear anything, and I don't know the difference.
You're like, oh, that's what they've been saying this
Yes.
whole time?
Honestly, I rewatched an entire series where folks had very heavy, regional British accents, and I realized I watched it the first time without captions. The second time, I understood twice as much.
Yes.
I had missed important story points because I misunderstood the Birmingham English accent.
Yes. And you know how to spell everyone's name. Because a lot of times you just assume that they're saying something.
It's interesting you bring up the accent. I'm not from the South.
Yeah.
You can probably tell by the way I talk. I've lived here for 10 years, but but when I first moved to North Carolina, people would say things and I'd be like, what?
Pardon?
They probably thought I was hard of hearing because I had to ask people to repeat things all the time because it was so different. Now I don't really even hear it anymore, but
Right.
it's just interesting.
I believe
those little
it.
insights into things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope you
I think
empathize
it's
a little bit.
are there. It's interesting because in my job at Iredell, I am in charge of all the signage. And so
there's an accessibility opportunity.
So we always
I've
make sure
learned a
there's
lot.
Braille on the signage.
Yay.
And then there's Braille plus it's raised text. And then the sign companies we work with are really good. That they know what the height has to be and all these sorts of things. And But, it's just little things that you don't think about
Unless
you need it. And honestly, when I started at Iredell 10 years ago, I'd done signs in other places I was at, but not to this degree. And so that was a new thing for me to learn. But also, like, our department runs our website, and we work with a great
More
website
opportunities
vendor.
for accessibility work.
And I think we have, last I checked, I think we had like a 95% accessibility rating, which is good. Although I need to know, where's the 5% that needs to be
Right.
fixed?
Where's the 5%?
So, yeah.
95% of what? Is it 95% of the minimum? Is it 95%
Right. That's
of
a
the
great
gold
That's
standard?
a great point. Yeah.
Because there's a floor, right?
Yeah.
There's a floor, generally rooted in federal funding and requirements to use federal funding in a way that's accessible to people with disabilities. But the federal standard is not best practice.
Yeah.
Right. And so
That's a really good point.
even we are constantly learning something new about how to make our work as accessible as possible, whether that's our website or including our newly launched or soon to be coming, I don't know which, AI chatbot, which was a big learning curve for me.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Is there a list, like if anybody that, is a business owner or just somebody who's interested, whatever, is there somewhere they can go, like a website or something that would kind of list and be like, here's your top 10 things you can do to make your place of employment or your business,
ADA.gov
Okay.
is the federal government's website to to share information, disseminate information, but also to delineate standards for accessibility. And that's true across settings. So it has web standards, but it also has some information about building accessibility. The North Carolina Building Code is also a source of important information. And of course, dare I say it, people with disabilities ourselves might be a useful resource.
Yeah.
That if there are people who use assistive technology or who rely on tools that you don't for navigating your workspace, your clinic, your hospital, ask them. How do we do?
It's a great idea.
What could be better? And that is a demonstration of commitment to inclusion that I think people really value. And especially in a healthcare setting, to know that the people who are providing your healthcare want you to be able to navigate as independently as possible, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what the signs are for. That's what that's what all of these accessibility measures are for, is so that people can just engage in their community, go to the doctor, go to work, go to school, access public websites so that they can get information and apply for legal assistance and, access their healthcare providers. All of that is really just about making sure that people with disabilities are able to be part of our communities.
Right.
And it's not magic, but it's so critical.
I'm thinking about, so I have a 4-year-old. And so, sometimes you see someone in the grocery store that might not look like her.
Yeah.
And maybe she's never seen someone in, a wheelchair, or someone that maybe
Has a
is
limb difference
nonverbal.
or a facial difference or
Right.
maybe stims
Right.
to self-soothe, or there are lots of things.
How do we address that with littles?
I think the first answer is always talk about it.
Okay.
It's not to shame or silence. It is, you're right, that is different. And, maybe at a 4-year-old's a little different from a 12-year-old. A 4-year-old might be, Mommy, why?
Yes.
Mommy, why doesn't that person have a hand? And you can say really honestly, I don't know. But there are lots of reasons why people might not have a hand. They might have been born with only one hand or no hands. They might have had an amputation due to an injury or an illness. And we don't usually ask people about their health in public. It's not polite. So I wouldn't suggest sending the 4-year-old to ask someone, hey, where's that other hand? I don't recommend that.
Yep.
But I do think that having honest conversation, answering their questions, and normalizing it, that people with disabilities are everywhere. And some of those disabilities have visible components, like limb differences or facial differences. And some of them are invisible. So, for example, a loved one of mine who has a condition that makes her dizzy every time she stands up. So she gets up very slowly. And people sometimes think she's being dramatic. And she's like, well, it would be more dramatic if I passed out.
Yep.
So how about you just let me stand up slowly?
Yeah.
So it's making space for people to do what they need to do without shame or derision but curiosity is not shame, right? That's just noticing other humans, and that humans come in all kinds of different shapes and packages.
Right.
And really making space for that like, because it's someone, one of our neighbors who has a ramp. Why do they have a ramp? Why don't their stairs look like ours? Why did they build that? Well, because they use some kind of tool to help them move around that doesn't do well with stairs. It might be a wheelchair, right? It might be a walker. It might be any number of other things. And just making space and noticing that people with disabilities exist. We're literally everywhere. We're in every community and nearly every family. And a lot of people who are, by legal definition, people with disabilities, don't even necessarily think of themselves that way.
Right.
And that's neither good nor bad. I'd love for everyone to, jump in on the disability justice celebration. But a lot of folks have a disability, but just think of it as a condition, a thing they have. I have a problem with my back. I can't walk more than 100 feet. Well, that might be a disability.
Right. But
It's
you're not
not
going to
who
say
they are.
they're not a disabled person.
Right. They're a person.
And
disability.
for some people it's more central to their identity. For some people it is very peripheral, and that's fine. People can navigate that in lots of different ways, but it's everywhere, and it's not at all unusual. It's in every classroom. It is in every workplace, and it's not an inconvenience for other people. Like people's disability is not actually about you. They might
Imagine that. It's a novel idea.
I know. All this wacky stuff I have to, all these fringy ideas about how people with disabilities are people.
Yeah.
Take a step back, think about what kind of barriers people around you might be encountering. Physical barriers, behavioral health barriers. Are you really welcoming of people with developmental disabilities that include like sensory issues? Is your workplace is it always loud? Is there a place to go to shut out the noise? Is your healthcare system able to provide spaces that feel accessible to people who need less noise, less bright lights? Is there a way for people to ask for what they need without making them feel like they're being demanding or extra? Because no one wants to alienate their healthcare providers because they're the people who are supposed to help you.
Right. Yes.
Right? So no one wants to be too much. And we know that often folks who do not have a disability won't anticipate
Right.
what people with disabilities need. And so just acknowledging that we're already here, right? We aren't like going to flood in because you created an accessible environment. We're already here, and you can either help us or not.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
I think it's important to understand that just because you don't understand another person's experience doesn't mean it's not real.
Absolutely.
You know, I think about, and you see it all over like social media and stuff, the times like people leave notes on people's cars because they parked in a handicapped spot, right? And they're like, you don't look disabled, blah, blah, blah. But they have no idea. And usually those stories, you know, it's the person who has some form of disability who has shared it and is saying like, here's what my disability is, but you wouldn't know that because I look the same as you on the outside. And we are all the same, right? We just have different functionalities of different things, right?
But know better, do better.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely. And don't assume that what you see in a momentary glance is everything.
Right? Yeah.
People's lives are more complicated than that.
Yeah.
I know.
Out of time.
This flew by.
Yes.
So thank you, Corey, first of all.
Yeah, thank you.
Because this has been extremely informative. There's some things that I'm making mental notes of to go and look at to make sure it's more accessible for everyone that sees our content.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you tell me that number one more time?
919.
Okay.
856.
Okay.
2195. And we'll share the links and all the other information.
Yeah,
so you can post it in the show notes.
Show notes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Like I said again, this has been really informative. And if you really liked this episode, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next episode. Bye guys.
Bye.
The content here is for informational and educational purposes only, not for medical advice. Consult your qualified healthcare professional for specific health concerns and questions.